Located on the northwestern coast of Italy between Genoa and Ls Spezia, the Cinque Terre, or Five Lands, are five ancient fishing and farming villages that sit perched at the edge of the Ligurian Sea. Because of its spectacular merging of land and sea, and the historical significance of its towns, the Cinque Terre has been declared a national park. Traveling from south to north, the towns are Riomaggiore, Manarola, Cornelia, Vernazza, and Monterosso al Mare. Cinque Terre's protected status makes travel between the towns by car forbidden. The only way to get from one to the others is by train, boat, or foot. Disembarking at the train station in Riomaggiore, one is immediately presented with two beautiful paintings. They depict the struggles of the early inhabitants of the area to shape this remote, rugged, and mountainous landscape in order to grow the crops necessary for their survival. The artist, Silvio Benedetto, described his painting as follows: "This is how I chose to narrate them, without heroism or idealism. I painted men of times gone by who saved their land by raising walls, stone upon stone." Although the people of Riomaggiore used to earn their living primarily as fishermen, like the villagers in the other Cinque Terre towns, many still have terraced plots of land upon which they grow grapes used to produce the local Cinque Terre wine. The arrival of a phylloxera infection in the 1920s had a drastic effect on the entire region. It wiped out the grapes. The more elevated terraces were abandoned, while those at lower elevations were only gradually replanted. Fortunately, the Cinque Terre National Park is actively involved in recuperating and maintaining abandoned terraces. The birth of the village, according to tradition, dates back to the 8th century, when it was founded by a group of Greek refugees who escaped the religious persecution of the Byzantine Emperor. The village has an urban layout made up of a series of footpaths which follow the outline of the land. These steep footpaths allow direct access to the upper floors of some of the houses. Riomaggiore's small harbor is a reminder of the fact that fishing used to play a large role in the economy of the village. Although most of the boats are now used for pleasure and sport fishing, a few commercial fishermen still supply the local markets and restaurants with fresh fish daily. The village has no sandy beach, and people sunbathe wherever they can find a sunny place close to the water's edge. Though still maintaining its fishing and agricultural roots, with the arrival of the railroad, tourism has become very important to the economic life of Riomaggiore over the last few decades. Like most Italian resorts, Riomaggiore has enough pizzerias to satisfy the needs of both tourists and residents alike. Roman Catholicism is the dominant religion in Italy, and many of Cinque Terre's residents are deeply religious. Some display statues of Christ or the Madonna and Child in small alcoves built into the outside walls of their homes. This small church, the Oratorio of Santa Maria, is located on the main street towards the upper end of the village. It was built in the 16th century. Riomaggiore's watchtower was strategically placed high atop a hill so that people could search the sea for impending danger. Except for a few centuries under the Pax Romana, it was not safe to live on the coast because of raids by pirates. When the danger from pirates subsided around the year 1000, people moved closer to the sea. Many children's games are seemingly universal. These Italian boys are playing the same game kids in New York played in the 1940s, and no doubt still play. Back then we called it freeze. Move, and you're it. Overlooking the village is the parish church of St. John the Baptist, San Giovanni Battista, built in 1340. Christians were persecuted throughout the Roman Empire until the Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity in AD 312, thereby making it a lawful religion. Constantine is said to have been converted as a result of a vision, but by the 4th century, adopting Christianity was the only way to unite a by then split empire. Starting in Riomaggiore and walking on this high, winding footpath along the coast called La Via dell'Amore, or Lover's Pathway, it's about a 30-minute walk to the next Cinque Terre village, Manarola. The contrast between the flat, blue expanse of water on one side of the pathway and the precipitous, rocky, and very dry hillside on the other is very stark. The view of Manarola's houses in the distance, perched atop small flat spots on the rugged cliffs, is breathtaking. It must have taken courage and vision to imagine building and living in this seemingly inhospitable location. As one approaches the outskirts of Manarola, the arid cactus and succulent-covered hillside gives way to terraced vineyards. The final section of the pathway is a long tunnel that burrows through the bottom of the mountain before it emerges onto Manarola's main street. Because the early townspeople had almost no flat land on which to build, the streets are very narrow and the houses very close together. This tall bell tower rises above the houses and is used as a navigational reference point for all those at sea. Manarola is an ancient village, but it is difficult to give an accurate account of its history due to the lack of clear historical information. There are, however, maps of the area dating back to the 5th and 6th centuries. These maps show numerous stone presses used to press small amounts of olive oil. Water wheels were used to grind grains into flour. Because the terrain is so steep and difficult, agriculture was almost completely dedicated to vineyards, and the locals were forced to import, then grind the grains in order to make their bread. Cinque Terre houses are like a cubist painting, done in pastel shades of rose, tan, and yellow. This church, built in Gothic style in 1338, is located in a dominant position, overlooking the sea and the village. The numerous small fishing boats that line the narrow street leading to the sea attest to the fact that for some people, fishing is still a viable occupation in Manarola. Large rock outcroppings shelter a small swimming area from the wind blowing off the sea. Walking on the path that hugs the steep cliffs between Manarola and the next village, Cornelia, one can turn back and view Manarola the way it would look from out at sea. Cornelia, located on a rocky promontory across the bay from Manarola, is the smallest of the 5 Cinque Terre villages. Strolling through Cornelia's narrow cobblestone streets is like taking a step back in time. It was shocking to see these bottles and candles for sale, adorned with pictures of Mussolini and well-known communist figures. One would think most Italians would rather forget the Mussolini era. A posted sign did say, however, that the objects did not represent a political statement. The main cobblestone street winds its way to a small loggia or square, one of the few places in the village wide enough for mothers and their children to sit and enjoy the afternoon sunshine. This statue of a young man, located in the middle of the loggia, is a memorial to the Italian men who lost their lives during the First World War. The Church of San Pietro was built in 1334 on the ruins of an old 11th century chapel. Standing in the church's small courtyard, one has spectacular views of the shoreline both up and down the coast. Manarola can be seen to the southeast. This rugged coastline lies to the northwest. Because of its location high above the sea, Cornelia is more concentrated on agriculture than on fishing. It was already exporting wine to Pompeii during the Roman period. A descent of 365 steps is required to go from the village to the railroad station, which stands right next to the sea. Tired from a full day of exploring 3 Cinque Terre villages and the coastline, we decided to take the short train ride to Vernazza. The only natural port of the Cinque Terre, the village of Vernazza developed along the now covered Vernazzola stream, climbing up the rocky face of the cliffs which hide the view of the houses to those who come at it from the sea. Vernazza was founded around the 1st century and in time acquired deep-rooted maritime traditions and a standard of living that was economically and socially superior to that of the other villages in the Cinque Terre. The harbor with its beautifully crafted stone walkway and seawall, the large churches with domed clock towers, and the well-maintained ancient castles all provide ample evidence of Vernazza's historically high standard of living. Vernazza extends from the village center, which contains many of its shops and restaurants, and makes its way up the steep hills surrounding the village. Happily, urban sprawl has been minimized, and much of the hillside has been terraced and not built upon. Many residents have vegetable gardens and fruit orchards. It's Vernazza's location, set on and between steep hillside and rugged cliffs, that gives it its unique and dramatic flavor. The sea and surf also act as magnets, drawing people to the Cinque Terre for water sports, sun, and just plain fun. The vital center of Vernazza is located in the main square abutting the harbor. Most of the village's commercial district, including its restaurants and shops, are found within 2 or 3 blocks of this area. This pizzeria is one of the most popular places in Vernazza to grab a quick takeout meal. Inside the small one-room establishment, the cook was very anxious to show a typical Ligurian dish called farinata. It's like a pizza, but it's made from chickpeas and doesn't have any tomato sauce on it. The friendly and approachable people of Vernazza are one of the most lovely aspects of the Cinque Terre experience.
Farinata viene fatta con farina di ceci, acqua, sale e olio. Farina di garbanzo. La farinata? Sì, ti dice la farinata. Farinata, tipica della Liguria.
Narrow, steep steps ascend from the main street and commercial district to the side streets that line the hillside. The narrow streets and houses, built very close together, conserve space and cut down on the intensity of the winds that blow off the sea, especially in the winter. In addition to religious iconography found in niches in the side of some of the houses, there are decorative reliefs created in motifs that reflect the villagers' deep connection with the sea and the land. Even this beautifully crafted, hand-painted sign expresses their love affair with grapes and wine. Vernazza's ancient and well-maintained castle and tower is a terrific place to get views across the bay to Monterosso al Mare, as well as Vernazza itself. The church on the square was built in 1318 in a Gothic Ligurian style and is dedicated to the patron of the village. The inside is divided in 3 and decorated with ardesia, the local black stone. It contains a very lovely old painting of the Madonna and Child. Each night, Vernazza's church towers and castle are lit up, giving the structures a much softer look than they have in the bright, often harsh Mediterranean sunlight. This morning we're going to take a boat across the bay to Monterosso al Mare, the last of the Cinque Terre villages we will visit. Monterosso al Mare is the westernmost of the Cinque Terre villages and can be reached by boat, train, car, or foot. Its beautiful beaches, which are the longest in the Cinque Terre, steep rugged cliffs, and crystal clear waters make this one of the most charming resorts on the Ligurian Riviera. Monterosso boasts the greatest number of hotels and rooms for rent in the Cinque Terre. In addition to its beaches and seaside, Monterosso's a small resort with a nightlife, thus complementing the quietness of the other Cinque Terre villages. This tall bell and clock tower looks down on the main square. It contains a lovely park where people can sit in the shade of its trees, meet friends and talk, and children can play on the swings. Thursday morning is market time in Monterosso. Each of the Cinque Terre villages holds its market on a different day of the week. All of the merchandise looked very good and business was booming. Like the market, the streets of Manarola were full of activity. Merchants were busy setting up for the day, tending their establishments and showing their wares, while shoppers strolled the downtown, buying their daily supplies, and tourists looked for bargains and souvenirs. Monterosso is clearly prosperous. Not only was there a lot of activity in the business district, there was also a great deal of remodeling of the colorful houses on the side lanes. The workmanship in the village was beautifully done and the attention to detail remarkable. The Church of Capuchins is built with Lucan, Pisan, green and white striped marble. The inside is quite ornate and houses this very interesting sculpture of Mary, her heart pierced by 6 swords. A model of a medieval boat hanging from the ceiling is another reminder of the deep connection the people of the Cinque Terre have historically had with the sea. In modern days, the Ligurian Sea attracts people from both the Cinque Terre and many other parts of the world. We've boarded the boat for the return trip to Vernazza. Our visit to the 5 villages of the Cinque Terre has been informative, fun, and very relaxing. We've enjoyed it thoroughly and hope to return someday. But now it's time to leave and journey to our next destination in Italy. I'm sure it holds many more fascinating places to explore.